Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Fuego here.
And I'm Andrew Mercer.
And we are starting the first review of our coverage of the films at the 2016 Phoenix Film Festival and their branch that covers the Spooktacular, which is redubbed the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. A good buddy of mine back to grade school, Montiazzi, shout out, gracias for the opportunity to work the event, man. We were stoked to check out a number of films, and this was the first one that we actually saw. It's called The Dark Tapes, and we also got to interview the director, Mr. Michael McQuown. This was a labor of love that he worked on for like 3 years almost, man.
Yeah,
with the initial filming and then coming back to it after a year. So check out that interview, and this was the interesting anthology take on just, I guess, the whole paranormal activity craze is the best way I can describe it. Cecil, what did you think, man?
Yeah. Basically, this was, as he said, an anthology, and the framing device was a particular story that came back in between each of the other stories, and then I think there were four other stories besides the main one.
There were three smaller ones, and
three?
then the one threading story throughout, basically.
So. All right. So basically, the wraparound story was there's this group of people that are trying to do some sort of paranormal investigation in a closed down, what looks like operating room of some kind.
Yeah. Or like a converted flat, or who the hell knows.
Who knows? But there's a table on which to operate people. It doesn't look like a genuine operating room,
no,
so I can understand
makeshift.
the confusion, right? But there is the table in there, and so they're basically setting up these electronic devices and trying to. What are they doing exactly? I'm not even sure.
I think they were basically trying to capture some sort of evidence about just otherworldly forces,
right.
Whether demonic or, just apparitions like remnant spirits of people who had already lived, because they mentioned different classifications or three separate species, I think is what they mentioned. Bottom line, it was spirits or just some sort of presence that can't be detected by the normal human eyes and ears. So they were in there with all this advanced recording technology. They had a camera that could both shoot in slow-mo and like replay or play it. I mean, you work with visual and audio and stuff.
It could record and playback at the same time.
So you could have you would be able to see exactly what you're recording. So there was no tape delay, there was no malfunction, something like that.
But early in the story, they set up sort of the rules of this particular one, which is what I thought was a new and interesting take. One of the reasons I enjoyed this movie is they explain that when we see a spirit, like when there's a spirit, when they're in their world, in this afterlife realm, time moves very differently. You can spend hours in the spirit realm. Basically, anytime we see a spirit for like a split second or a second, that spirit has to have been standing still for hours within their realm.
Just lingering in one particular room, or at least close by for you to notice that.
Because time passes that differently. So
it's a common theme in horror, though, right?
It is. This whole thing sort of has to do with dimensions, which is which is sort of an interesting twist as we find out as we go along, without ruining too much.
It felt legitimately researched, though, which is why I like the concept of all the stories they tied together in this anthology.
Well,
that's
specifically the
why
wraparound,
that one was really compelling.
But let's move on to the stories in proper. The very first one that we see, the first dark tape, as it were, or maybe the second, if you consider the wraparound the first.
Yeah.
This one is a very, very familiar setup in that it's basically paranormal activity. It's a couple that move into this new house, and suddenly things start to happen very paranormally. They hear footsteps above them, and things
also
they just
like
can't
the
explain.
James Wan movie, though, right?
Which one? Insidious?
Insidious, yeah. The ghost
that was
hunter
more
guys,
having to do with the kid. So there was no kid in this, so it kind of not really. But
I thought just at least the essence of the
ghost
people
hunters,
who show
that's
up on
not
the
just
scene.
Insidious. That's been so many other movies.
Right?
Yeah. So basically, the couple rather has to resort to inviting a ghost hunter group to come investigate, and they do so. And let's just say the results of the investigation are not what the ghost hunters or the family were expecting, I should say.
Yeah,
no,
definitely not. Being anthology, there's a twist on everything, and so very akin to The Twilight Zone is what the director told us countless times, and when he addressed the Phoenix Film Festival audience, said the same thing, so...
Yes, and then we go back to the wraparound, and once again, after that, we move into Dark Tape number 3, which Andrew, I believe this one was called Cam Girls. You want
Cam
to tell
Girls.
everyone what Cam Girls is about?
You have a lot of familiarity with cam girls.
I guess-
Andrew, why don't you tell us about Cam Girls? Because
Well, it was basically about kind of a love interest going on between a woman and this
A woman.
this it was
bad influence.
yes, she was a bad influence. She was, but I don't know. She tried to play sweet, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It was the larger gentleman that she started with.
Well, basically,
He was the first to log
they
in,
have
I
a
think.
whole group. Yeah,
Yeah,
they have
yeah,
a whole
yeah.
group
And they
of
narrow it
gentlemen
down.
show up, and yeah, like you said,
And there was
this,
a lady.
There was a lady.
too.
the
There was a lady.
main girl has a girlfriend that shows up and basically says, "I want you to try and get whoever to do something.
Yes.
I want you to get them to cut themselves."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She has a roommate, right?
Right.
And
Well,
yeah.
their roommate girlfriend.
yes,
thing, yeah.
roommate, girlfriendy. Yeah, yeah. It was. She was weird. She put off a weird vibe.
Co-companion.
Koha.
Yeah. Cam.
it is.
Huh?
Yeah,
Opinion? She's
hashtag.
here all week, folks.
So, yeah, she mentioned something beforehand. I don't want to spoil too much, but it was, you kind of set up to where this whole camp thing was going to be interesting, and then they bring in a whole kind of a roulette of people, and they choose this lowly fellow that just.
Lowly, how dare you? He could be me, mother
Well,
effer.
Hey,
He's
that's
just-
terrible.
he's
Don't
just a-
say such things.
He's
I
just a
don't-
big bearded dude that's into cam girls.
He was
and he
very-
seems totally nice.
he was
Yeah,
very
he wants
quiet.
to marry
Be
one.
very
one
careful
day,
what you
okay?
say about
He
this
was
guy.
very quiet.
That's all
and
I'm saying.
He was different compared to everybody else that was in the chat rooms. All I was trying to say.
He was respectful.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he's on Cam Girls.
He's respectful to the
Okay.
cam girl.
Well, the one thing that stuck
Listen.
out to me was his whole backdrop
Use
was
5
black.
words, man.
so,
I mean, come on.
No, okay, go ahead.
his whole backdrop was black, which I kind of stuck out to me right away. I was like, but I had no idea it was going to be him. So they choose this guy, and I don't know if at that point in time you kind of start seeing that there's
Something
a
weird.
malfunction kind of with the camera. And
Which
mainly,
is a threading theme we
Yes.
have to mention, because anytime what I perceived as a supernatural presence, what these guys think might be aliens.
Well,
or
not every
who
time.
the hell knows?
Not
you
every
know?
time. No.
But-
Only that one particular episode, which we'll get to.
Okay.
This particular one, yes, this was a weird supernatural, and again, our discussion with the director after the movie sort of revealed a little bit more insight that it was, again, everything sort of goes back to other dimensional aspects.
Jumping.
But there's interesting things that the guy on the cam sees, and then there's interesting things that happen. Again, we don't want to reveal too much.
sometimes he doesn't, but they did a really good job with the whole effect and everything.
The editing was great.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was pulled off very well. And then it gets to a point where she kind of asks him to do something a little over the top. Like I said, we mentioned it before. The roommate had said something. So they get to that
We're not
point.
going to say if he does or not,
Yeah,
but it
and
gets
then
to a point of choice.
Yeah. I mean, at any point in time, you can turn the camera off and walk away from the computer. But
yeah, so we should probably stop there so we don't spoil too much.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Because these are all short chunks.
It was a good. I'm not exactly sure how they phased into the next part though.
They just
They
cut
just
back
jump.
to the
It was
main.
just
Yeah,
okay.
they just always go back to the framing device, and then
Which-
we get to the third one, which was one that unfortunately we have to mention that this one is this particular cut of the movie is a very early cut. It's not a final cut. It's just still in post production. The director said in the Q&A at the end of the movie that he still needs to color correct, and he's still making a couple of changes here and there, but he submitted it to the festival for feedback and things like that. So respect to that, no problems seeing something like that. We like that, in fact, because we're in the same business, so why not?
Totally.
And so it wasn't quite a finished product, and that was reflected in a couple of aspects of it. But all in all, the reason I bring it up is because this third story was very dark and very tough to see portions of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, because it's almost like just a character being totally taken advantage of and the aftermath. And it's much more gnarly and almost just, I don't want to say supernatural because differing opinions, but...
Well, and I meant dark literally in the sense that it was very lacking light. Like the whole thing was presented dark, and the director mentioned afterwards that it looked better on his screen. He hadn't had a chance to check it in the theater yet.
Dark, not in tone, as
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the appearance, I see.
Exactly, in appearance. So it was a little tough to have the effect driven home, which was unfortunately a theme we saw in some of the short films. this year, but the content was still good. It was this girl that was basically, to her friends, going a little bit nuts and going off the grid and disappearing. And one friend in particular, a very close guy friend of hers, that she would constantly check in with because she just had that special connection with. And she went off the grid and disappeared, and the whole short takes place over, I think, even a couple of years. And by the end, she basically tells him what's happening and that she's being taken by forces unknown. This is where the differing opinions that Fuego was talking about is, which I think we can talk about because, you know, it's an anthology. There's going to be a little bit of everything. And for that reason, because she described it as being taken, and she always described her cameras getting shut off and the electronics being turned off when these visitors arrived, I automatically jumped to Alien. And we actually get a glimpse of the creatures at one point, and they don't look necessarily like your traditional aliens. They do look a bit more creature-ish, but I did not get the sense of what Fuego did, which is what.
Yeah, I thought they looked almost identical to the creatures we saw showing up in the main threading story,
which was
where they
more
were trying to summon demonish. But since they said there were different levels of these creatures, 3 in fact, I thought maybe this girl is being tormented after these weird drugs or apparently just like traumatic experience, whatever it was, because this girl gets drugged at a party and bad stuff happens without elaborating too much, but she's changed from thereafter. And so for that reason, I thought something was unlocked that was either drawing these creatures towards her or whatever, but I always thought that they were the same ones that were trying to be captured by the doctor.
See, and that's the thing. They were a different color, which is why I didn't quite think that, but outside of the color, the design was very similar.
Very much
so I can see how the confusion would be absolutely 100%. But let's talk about the effects then. It's a good segue. We'll get to the acting a little bit later, but the effects, I thought, at times, they really shined. In fact, the wraparound, the first time we see sort of the thing that they're up against in the wraparound story, it was very effective. I was, in fact, surprised at how effective because the director managed to do something innovative with this creature. The way he presented it, there was almost like a Sixth Sense vision kind of thing, and the way he presented the creature communicating was really cool, and it was really ominous.
Very much so. Gave me the chills more so than any of the other segments.
Exactly. Unfortunately, as that progressed, when we got a little bit later on, you could see, again, the sort of roughness of the movie. The scariness sort of dwindled a little bit with the representation of this entity. But, you know, that wasn't the only effect. You know, let's talk about some of the other gore effects. One in particular I wanted to mention was there was a yes, exactly that. There was a particular kill in one of the shorts, and we won't say which because it would probably give it away, but there was a very good throat prosthetic moment that was like, oh, that looks really, really good. And
it wasn't just the first moment; they do come back to it too, and it's pretty over the top, but done very well.
Absolutely. What were some other ones, guys?
Well, the gore is used sparingly in this film, and I think that might take the cake, but I just felt the actual look of the creatures when it was shown more so in these brief flashes, because they said that it was a practical, you know, suited or stringed or something without, you know, pulling the curtain too far back. But yeah, I thought it was effective when it was shown in those brief, hypnotic, just jaunting flashes, especially in the main threading segment.
And they did kind of, like we said, the story kind of changes dimensions, kind of a thing. So I don't know if that's kind of how they were trying to convey the difference in creature.
Yeah.
But you know, the way, like you said, they had that effect the first time you kind of get to see the creature, and it was like, whoa.
I felt like you saw a little too much of those creatures, though. Like the shots stayed on them a little more so in that final story, which is
a little bit too long, right.
Far.
But you know, overall, I thought the use of the practical effects, both gore and suit, you know, creature suits, were effective. You know, for the most part. So that is a big positive. Now, like I said, let's circle back to the acting. I thought the acting overall was pretty good. I can't pick out one that I had a particularly huge gripe with.
No, none whatsoever. I liked Callahan, who was the professor scientist guy. I thought he did a good job, and his nervousness about the subject really made me feel the same way, because best thing about this film for me was the whole threading idea of just, I'm fascinated by trying to capture these frightening forces we can't see with the naked eye.
Right.
Because I have no way to really confirm or deny what could surround me in this world, and you know, with my upbringing and stuff, it kind of scares me, and you can see me getting uneasy about the subject, even thinking about it, because it scares me. I've never really thought about a spiritual presence, but the more I get into horror writing and stuff, the more plausible all of this stuff seems to me.
Yeah, understandable.
Which
makes it real.
It does.
Real scary.
But, overall, I think it was a successful film. He's going to still correct a few things, and I think it's going to be all the stronger for it.
It's going to be way better because we already have a super strong film with great ideas behind it. I think fine-tuning just a few things and the finished product is going to be really memorable.
Absolutely. So by the time by the time you guys get around to actually seeing it, it'll be in tip-top form, and I think it's going to be enjoyed by a vast amount of people. It's just one of those good anthologies out there. As long as he makes just a few little tweaks, it'll be right up there.
It was a nice contrast of tones, too, similar to other successful recent stuff like Tales of Halloween and even Southbound. There is a big emphasis on anthology storytelling. It's popular again, man.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is cool because I love it. I love horror in these short bursts because it's really doesn't beat around the bush a lot of the time.
Well,
it just gets right to it.
It keeps you entertained, and if there's a story you don't like, it's over soon. And if there's a story you do like, all the better.
It's got that nostalgia kind of campfire feel to it, where if you can get into the story, great. If not, you're kind of there just for the entertainment, I guess.
Yep. Absolutely. And forgive us, you guys, this is a movie that we can't really show clips of because it's in such early stages. There are no clips really to show at this point. So you've just had to stare at our ugly mugs most of this time. But hopefully you're still going to find the review informative and check out the movie as soon as it's available nearby. Thank you again to Mr. Michael McQuown for delivering the product and taking time to speak with us afterwards. As Fuego said, keep on the lookout. We did do an interview with him. I'm not sure if it'll be up by the time this review goes up because this might be one of the first things we put up.
Yeah.
But stay tuned and you will get to see us talking with the director about the film. And that was a really good conversation, so stay tuned for that. So thanks very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gotta give a big gracias to Montiazzi. Thanks for having us covering the event. I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And I'm Andrew Mercer.
And until next time, remember,
stay scared.
Woo! Real scared.